this regular meeting of Minnehaha County Planning Commission to order. I will begin with a few introductory comments for this meeting. Any final action tonight on conditional use permit requests will take effect 5 working days following this meeting unless a written appeal of the Planning Commission's decision is filed in the Planning Office by Monday, May 1st at 5 p.m. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the County Commission for a hearing on Tuesday, May 16th at or after 9 a.m. in this same room. Any final action taken on rezoning requests tonight will be referred to the County Commission for a public hearing on Tuesday, May 30th at 9:15. The meetings of the County Commission are held in this same room. Are there any objections to the Planning Commission members on any of the consent agenda items? Seeing none, I will next read each item on the consent agenda. If any member of the audience objects to an item or would like to discuss any item on the consent agenda, please raise your hand and the item will be moved to the regular agenda to allow you to ask questions or submit comments to the Planning Commission later in the meeting. Okay, the consent agenda includes the approval of the minutes from the March 27th meeting, 2017. Item number 2 is a conditional use permit 1715 to exceed 1,200 square feet of accessory building requesting 2,500 square feet. Petitioner's Jamie Bowen. Location is 45705 252nd Street, approximately 6 miles north of Humboldt. Item number 3, conditional use permit 1716 to allow 2 single-family dwellings on, and this is Peggy Keller, approximately 2.5 miles northeast of Crooks. Item number 4, conditional use permit 1717 to exceed 1,200 square feet of total accessory building requesting 2,200 square feet. This is Corey Herding. It's at 7715 East Maple Street, approximately 1.5 miles west of Brandon. Item number 5, conditional use permit 1720 to allow bed and breakfast. This is Mike and Jana Miles, which is at 45816 Highway 38, approximately 1/2 mile east of Humboldt. Item number 6, conditional use permit number 1721 to exceed 1,200 square feet of accessory building requesting 2688. This is Steve Roth and Misty Truman. It's at 25397 465th Avenue, approximately 5 miles north of Hartford. Item number 7, conditional use permit 1722 to exceed 1,200 square feet of accessory building requesting 2,700. This is Chris Stewart. It's at 48352 257th Street, approximately 3 miles southwest of Garrettson. Item number 8, conditional use permit number 1723 to exceed 1,200 square feet of accessory building requesting 2,400. Peggy Keller is the petitioner. It's approximately 2 miles northeast of Crooks. Item number 9, 1724 to allow temporary retail sales of fireworks. This is Andy Jorgensen, property owner is Samuel Assam, and this is the northwest corner lot of Highway 42 and 481st Avenue, approximately 1 mile east of Sioux Falls.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on that. Why isn't that in our joint city?
Because it's on the east side of the river and that's outside of the jurisdiction.
Okay, thanks.
All right, that concludes the consent agenda. I saw no objections during the reading of the items, so we'll call for action.
Move approval.
We have a motion for approval.
Oh, the consent agenda. Second.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The consent agenda carries. Now, 2 things. First, if you have got a sign that you paid $50 deposit on, please bring that back to receive your $50 deposit back. And then you are free to go at this time if your item has been approved. And then we will start with item number 10. Kevin Hochman will be presenting item number 10.
Good evening. It's Kevin Hookman, County Planning Department. Here before you is conditional use permit application number 1718 to exceed 1,200 square feet of total accessory building, and the request is for 13,440 square feet.
Okay, I can see why you might have put this one on the regular agenda.
And so the property is located approximately 4.5 miles north of Sioux Falls along Highway 115, South Dakota Highway 115, near what's known as the Peterson subdivision along the highway. In subdivisions of residential lots that exceed 4 in number of lots, accessory buildings greater than 1,200 square feet need a conditional use approval for approval to build. The petitioner is requesting 13,440 square feet of accessory space, as he would like to construct one building that is 60 feet by 184 square feet. He has one building that is already existing on the property, which is 2,000 square feet. In the past, this property has had 2 conditional use permits. The 2,000 square foot building was approved in 2005, in which he was actually approved for 2,400 square feet, but only constructed 2,000 square feet at the time. And then in 2014, a major home occupation was approved to allow a truck body restoration in the 2,000 square foot accessory building. If approved, this building would not be allowed to be used as part of his home occupation, as that already is required to only have 2,000 square feet. Planning staff has several concerns with the proposed accessory building, and the commission should consider these concerns if the application is to be approved. Note that the large building, let's see if I got a site plan here. Well, the site plan isn't coming up very well. The large building is 11,040 square feet, and this size of building, for example, would even require a conditional use permit in a commercial zoning district. There are many buildings in the area that do have larger accessory buildings, and that map gets pretty small. And one building one property right here does have approximately 20,600 square feet of accessory building on a 90-acre parcel, which is also part of a larger farm. The residential buildings in the area are all smaller, with the largest one in the area existing at 4,560 square feet. Next concern is that the Minnehaha County Building Inspector generally requires engineering stamp drawings for buildings that are wider than 50 feet wide. And this structure is proposed to be 60 feet wide, and to his standards should be engineered if it is approved. Third, the subject property is currently 2 parcels. You can't see that in this map, but you can see the white line right in the middle there. And this has happened in the past, where a petitioner will have 2 neighboring parcels, and generally what we require them to combine the 2 parcels into one before the building is constructed, as you cannot have an accessory building without a primary use. For any conditional use permit, there are criteria that should be examined. 6 criteria, excuse me. First, the effect upon the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for uses already permitted in the property, and upon property values in the immediate vicinity. This will be the largest residential use structure in the area. The accessory structure will not be used for commercial uses if it was approved, and the home occupation, as explained, would not be able to be allowed to expand into it. The requirement for personal storage only would be required as part of the permit if approved. Second, The effect upon normal and orderly development and the improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses prominent in the area. If the structure is approved, this could set a precedent for future accessory buildings in the neighborhood. The area is well developed with residential acreages, and the proposed site accessory building has, or the proposed property has a building eligibility on it as well, so he could put a house on it through a conditional use permit process. The surrounding agricultural land will likely remain agriculture, whether this is approved or not, because the building eligibility has been moved. Number 3, the utilities, road access, and other necessary facilities are provided. If attaining and extending utilities would be required to be done by the petitioner, and access would be done by the road, the existing driveway. Number 4, the off-street parking and loading requirements are met. This use would not require any additional parking, and note that no commercial businesses parking would be allowed at any time. And number 5, the measures are taken to control offensive odors, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, and lighting, inclusive of lighted signs, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance. As with any conditional use, no offensive nuisances shall be permitted at any time if the structure was approved. And number 6, the health, safety, and general welfare of the public in the comprehensive plan. The proposed accessory building is a size of a structure more typically found in commercial or industrial locations. The property is a small acreage in a subdivision of dozens of other residential acreages. A residential use at this scale may appear to be commercial in nature, despite the residential use. The building may also lead as a precedent for the future large buildings in the neighborhood. Staff finds the proposed accessory building exceeds typical size of accessory buildings in the area, and staff recommends denial of conditional use permit 1718. And I'll go over some pictures here. And some of the site photos. Looking down the driveway, he has a driveway from the front yard leading to the back garage existing. And you can see trees on the south side there. A little closer up, you can see the parking area and trees around the property. This is the general area where the structure would be placed. It's flat and fairly low ground. Another picture of the area. You can see the trees on the side. This is looking from approximately the front of the garage, the existing garage, to the nearest neighbors to the south of the property. On the site plan, if you look at the aerial photography, it does appear that there's a driveway here, but it looks like that has been removed, and that's what's left of the driveway that used to go to the neighboring property. And then this is the Peterson farm that is currently an active farm that has the large accessory buildings existing on the property. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Kevin?
Kevin, so that farm you've got a picture of there, that's the one on a 90-acre plot?
Yes. Yep.
And so that was basically a farming operation for 100 years or something?
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Kevin? Not, will the petitioner come forward? Thank you, Kevin.
Right.
State your name and address, please.
Tim McClish, 25543 475th Avenue. I'm supposed to,
Do you have any questions? Or obviously, the staff is recommending denial. Why should we not deny this?
well, I guess what I was kind of hoping is maybe if, obviously that's a very large building, maybe you could tell me a smaller size that would be more appropriate for the situation, or that would, I mean, I totally understand if you don't want to build a 180-foot building, I get it, but maybe if you could tell me a smaller size. something like that. or-
Staff, is there
Well,
any,
typically, you would allow what would be the largest in the area, and I think if you look at that map, it's
1,500?
4,500 or something.
Okay,
45, 60.
that would be total.
That would be total.
So you add your 2,000 to that, you got 2,500 potentially. No guarantees.
Yeah.
okay. I guess I don't really have a whole lot to say.
Question
I
for the
mean,
petitioner, let's see if anybody else has any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
So are you going to run a business out of this building?
No, and the last conditional use permit I got for business, I never even started a business. I was just getting that
Hoping
approval
to-
in case when I bought the house, if I ever wanted to, but I never did, so
So this is
there's no
a
business.
pretty large building. Are you going to, is it going to grow stuff in there, or, I mean?
For storage mostly, but eventually I would maybe, I don't even know if I would have to get another permit, but ride horses in there for training. Or, for barrel racing and everything.
So you have horses?
Not yet, but,
Okay.
I mean, that's one of my goals, I guess you'd call it, or whatever, but.
A quick question to staff, okay, he has a conditional use permit for a home, it was truckery, but
Yeah, it's on the other half of my property.
how long
so-
does that stay, as long as he owns it?
Well, if it hasn't, actually, if the use hasn't occurred within a year, it's supposed to be invalid.
Okay,
I have no desire
I
to
just
do
wanted to
that, so.
clarify that.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Okay. Anyone in the audience care to address this? Or you have anything else you'd like to state, sir?
No, that's
Okay,
it.
then we'll ask for other comment from the audience. Seeing none? Any questions, discussion, motion?
Mr. Chair, I think it's too big of a building. I mean, it's a third the size of a football field or something, I think. And so I think perhaps he could work with staff to come up with an alternative, so I'm going to make a motion to deny at this point.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny. Any further discussion?
If you deny it, he'll have to come back and reapply and pay the fee. So I just will throw that out there that, that if you,
Defer?
you could continue it for a month and he could come back with a more reasonable request. I would also-
I would like to adjust my motion to that, Mr. Chairman.
Do you withdraw your first?
I'll
motion?
withdraw my first motion and make a motion to defer action for 1 month. 1 month.
That'll save him $250.
That's what I was gonna say. That's all right. Which you'd spend on a building permit eventually.
Often gives me a hard time about, I'm raking in the money, but see, I'm trying to accommodate.
Spent $300 with him this year, so. Okay, so we have a motion and a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. All those in favor of delaying this for 30 days, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So this will be delayed for 30 days. You can come back with another proposal.
If I could just make a note,
What would be a more appropriate proposal?
Kind of what we just talked about.
work with staff.
You can work with staff on that. Okay.
Did you have something else?
Now
Bill?
we're to what?
Mr. Chair, I would just, if I could, just to add on that too, it'd be nice to have a better feel for what the intended use is as well when you come back. So if that's a month or whatever that ends up taking, I think that would help too, I guess from my perspective.
Yeah, and it's all hidden by trees. The trees are 40 feet tall all the way around, so nobody would ever see it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Item 11, Scott.
Item 11 is a rezoning request. Tonight's the hearing that's been published for rezoning request 1701 to rezone approximately 80 acres from A1 agriculture to the Eagle Ridge Plan Development District. This is for a property that is about a mile or so south of Wall Lake and the extension of 41st Street where it meets the Wall Lake Oil, commonly called. I met with the applicant and the applicants and Eric Willitson this morning, and they are asking this be deferred for 1 month to the May 22nd meeting. They are going to revise their plan and bring us a different plan, so.
That's my motion.
Thanks.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, we will defer this, the motion has been made and seconded to defer for 30 till the next meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That will be deferred for 30 days.
It'll be deferred to the May 22nd meeting.
Okay.
Remind me not to come.
Our next,
The next item is also a rezoning request. This is for, just check something quick here. This is a rezoning request 1702 to rezone approximately 3.5 acres from A1 Agriculture District to the RR Rural Residential District. The property is located approximately 2.5 miles north of Sioux Falls at property that is approximately a half-mile east of the intersection of the Jim Zweep Memorial Highway and the Renner Road on 258th. So it's about a mile and a half east of Renner. The applicant is rezoning 3.5 acres to rural residential out of a 20-acre parcel that he owns and lives on. The intent of that is to subdivide that 3.5 acre parcel into 3 residential lots, and he has provided a general site plan showing the proposed 3 lots. On April 11th of 2017, not March of 2008, I did conduct a staff visit to the site, and there is an existing residence which is buffered by a very nice shelter belt, and that's located south of the proposed area to be rezoned. There is a rural subdivision of approximately 55 lots that is located generally to the north of this property. And then also, in addition, you have Andes Acres, which is approximately a mile and a half south of the proposed rezoning, and that contains about 40 lots, more or less. Those are zoned A1 agriculture and were grandfathered in when we adopted the zoning ordinance. The Minnehaha County's comprehensive plan, the 2035 Envision 2035 plan, has identified this as a future growth area, and this future growth area is called a transition area, and this property is located within that transition area. But I would indicate that the concept behind a transition area is to promote cooperative efforts with cities in dealing with development issues along their fringes. Ideally, I think the plan indicates that growth should occur when municipal infrastructure can be provided, infrastructure in the way of water and sewer. At this point, Sioux Falls has not identified this as an area not to be serviced in the near future. The property is also not located within the Renner Sanitary Sewer District. It lies outside the boundaries. The applicant has indicated they have a desire to rezone approximately 3.5 acres to allow for those 3 additional houses to be constructed along 258th Street. And I'll show you their general plan there. This certainly may set a precedent which would encourage many other properties in the area to start requesting rezoning and create many new residential lots. The applicant has an additional 16 acres, which could also then, at a later date, be rezoned and subdivided. The rezoning proposal does not meet the policies and the objectives of the Envision 2035 Comprehensive Plan. It ignores density zoning as the best means for residential development. Action 4.2 of the Comprehensive Plan states that new growth and development should be focused within municipalities and areas adjacent to municipalities where infrastructure will be available. And as I indicated, this is not within that area where infrastructure by the city or a municipality is available. Certainly, I have concerns that this may represent spot zoning. This rezoning of a lone 3.5 acre parcel from a larger area could be considered as a spot zoning. The closest rural residential area is located approximately a mile and a half south within that Andes Acres subdivision. For those reasons mentioned, and is not consistent with the intent of the Envision 2035 Comprehensive Plan, and it appears to constitute spot zoning, Staff is recommending denial of the rezoning request to rezone 3.5 acres from A1 Agriculture District to rural residential. And I'll show you a couple of slides of the proposed site. So this is the proposed parcel, and I think if you go back and look at this, you'll see that there is, you'll see the 3.5, the applicant's house is right here. The 3.5 acres that are proposed to be rezoned are up here, but then that also would leave additional property here that could be, I suppose, someday rezoned if they so desired. This shows the very nice buffered single-family residence that's located on that parcel. This is their garage along the driveway. This is the subject property. It is located on a hillside that slopes to the north. This is from their driveway looking to the west. This is looking to the across the road to the east. This is part of the property. There's their rezoning sign, nicely posted. This once again shows the area to be rezoned, and it's along that hillside. This is looking basically west. I'm on the, west. I'm on the east side of the property looking directly west. So I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, questions for Scott? Yes.
Scott, so are the other properties this, the applicant owns contiguous with this property, and do they have any eligibilities?
Well, there is one eligibility. It's used by the existing house.
Okay,
And the 20 acres is all one parcel right now.
okay. And the Andes Acres and the other acreage to the northwest there, those are both grandfathered in, isn't?
Yeah, there's some areas of Andes Acres that are zoned rural residential, but then there are some that are just zoned ag. And then the property to the north, I'm trying to think what that subdivision is called. McCroskey's tracks, and that's zoned ag.
And if I may, are any of them connected to the Renner Sanitary District?
No. They're on Minnehaha Community Water, and they have their own septic systems.
Right.
Okay, any other questions for Scott?
I did receive one other thing, and I put a letter in front of you, and I did give one to the applicant. At 4:30 this afternoon, I received a letter from an adjacent property owner or a neighbor, and I passed that out for your review, and I also gave one to the applicant.
All right, thank you. The petitioner is here. Please come forward, state your name and address.
Robert Corey and my wife Angie Dolan, and I neglected to get her put on this whole thing to start with when I got going with it. If you look at that picture there, those three properties, there's a wonderful shelter belt to the north of our place towards 258th Street. The land up there is level, and then it slopes off to the highway. With over an acre, you could put septic tank systems in there. We would come up that driveway, and just to the north of the shelter belt, we'd cut off our driveway and put a road all the way in on the north side. So there'd still only be one entry onto 258th Street. Now, the balance wrapping around belongs to the city.
I believe you have to stay at the microphone, sir, so you can be recorded. We kind of understand what's there. We have it down here.
And we
in
can
front of you.
actually see it right in front of you. There's
We have a large screen
monitor.
TV right underneath your desk here that we're looking at.
In front of us, there's
Oh.
a
Front of the
TV
desk.
up here that they can see.
Oh, okay. Our property goes to the right of where the trees are,
Yep.
and then to the left, down about 100 yards or better.
There it is.
Right. The rest of that wraps around to the east and to the south. It's hilly property, and it adjoins Slip Up Creek. The city bought that when they thought they might have to dam up Slip Up Creek before they dug some new wells. And so we have animals. We have three horses that we've been fostered or adopted. Two of them are blind that nobody else would take. They were starved to death. There's no way that we could develop the rest of that pasture of the 15 acres. Now, I'm 84. My wife is 70. Before we retired, we did a lot of update on the house. We have a beautiful home out there. We'd like to stay there till we pass on and give it to our daughter and son and 3 grandsons. But when you have to pay over $7,000 taxes to the city, it has to come out somewhere other than Social Security and teacher's pension. So we have to draw it out of savings accounts. Well, savings only last for so long. So it would be a real boon to us if we can develop those 3 lots. My realtor and neighbor, Philip Eggers, he sold the ones up at Cedar Ridge that you people approved for a whole bunch of them, which is on a busy Cliff Avenue north where 58th Street is not busy. But they sold for $60,000 a lot. You figure our lot is worth more than that. So I'm just asking you to give it some thought. And the lawyer who sent the letter this afternoon, and he says in there he's got nothing, we only got along good. He's 3 houses down to the west of us. There's 6 houses across the road. 3 of them have been built in the last 2 years. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them have. And going west, his place is the 3rd one, and there's another one and 2 more. So it's not like it's just strictly ag out there, but it's potential. And it, just read in the paper this last week that housing is hard to find in Sioux Falls. People are wanting to build out in acreages. But we have 3 beautiful lots we could sell.
You do understand how the county works relative to eligibilities?
Yeah, to some extent.
So to us, that's like gifting you 3 eligibilities. It's also about density zoning. It's also about you're not affiliated with the sanitary sewer district, and this is not a planned development. They're we've been pretty consistent on what we approve and do not approve for these types of things. So otherwise, like I say, I have 30 acres. Okay, if we do that for you, then I think I should get like 3 or 4 of those lots too. That's the way it would go. It's just
Right.
a snowball effect. It's precedence. Any other questions for the petitioner?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience care to address this? Okay, seeing none? Then please come forward, state your name and address.
Phil Eggers, 25748 476th Avenue. I guess my family owns the land directly across from there, and I rent basically all the farmland and cattle around there
To the north?
to the north. My question is why, how is this different from Cedar Ridge, just for my knowledge?
I would have staff address this. This body actually voted against Cedar Ridge.
Okay.
It was the county commission that approved that.
Okay.
Do you want me to give you an explanation?
Yes.
As the chairman indicated, Cedar Ridge was a planned development, and they had 80 acres. They proposed 18 lots, and I think there was a wider concept there where they had an equestrian center, and they had open space and trails, and they had a plan, a uniform plan that they provided, or that they presented to the planning commission and the county commission. And it was where there was already a lot of development occurring. There was a mobile home park, if you recall, or manufactured home park that was directly adjacent to that as well. So, and as the planning commission indicated, they did not support the request. The county commission did rezone it and overturned their recommendation. But I think there's a difference there because there was an overall concept that was provided, an overall plan where you had residential and you had another use, and this is strictly just a residential use. with
Understood.
No
And-
other plans.
And I guess that's where the idea came from, is that there was probably, between that, the Storm Heights Second Edition, there were probably 35 lots approved within the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, the Storm
in
Heights,
there.
that's within the Renner Sanitary Sewer District.
Correct.
So there,
Yeah.
it's a little different there, and that's
Okay.
in what we would call a, rural service area, or it's also in that transition area where Renner
The key to that was the sanitary sewer
sanitary
district.
sewer.
Understood. That's just where I needed clarification. Thank you.
Well, could I ask you, Mr. Eggers,
Yes.
so do you have any eligibilities on your property?
We do.
Okay, well, that's, I guess, my question. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else in the audience? Not, we'll close the floor, call for action or discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I do think it is representing spot zoning, and it's not, that other acreage, certainly I can understand the comparison being drawn, but, that equestrian center, et cetera, was in a sense a bit of an ag thing, and it's also, that road is growing quickly. It's difficult for me to see a way to approve this at this point. I'll let my fellows opine.
Any other comments, discussions? I understand where Mr. Corey's coming from, as I turned 66 this year, and I'm looking at over $5,000 in taxes every year. I understand what you're talking about. And you have to start planning, okay, how long can I afford to live here? I understand all that, but this
Yeah.
doesn't have anything to do with that, unfortunately. This has strictly to do with density zoning and appropriate land use.
Let me,
Because he has a lot of land, he sold off 8 lots. Come up with
If you have the eligibilities, that's the way it works. Okay, do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of denial signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion to deny is carried. We have old business, correct?
So I think we have on the agenda to discuss the PAYCO ordinance update, and, I mean, we've discussed this, so I think if you're comfortable, I think we are at the point where we should set the hearing date. We review this, we can start having, the process of a hearing date. So if that's what you would like, I would ask that you direct staff to publish a hearing date at whatever meeting you'd like, and if you feel that we should have other meetings, like neighborhood meetings or more like,
Yes.
a meeting
Sure.
in Hartford.
Around the
or-
areas, sure, like
Yeah.
you've done with other things.
I think we're ready to move on to the next step.
Did you do anything regarding to existing producers?
If you look at it, it was decided to maintain the existing wording for that and alter a little bit.
Do what, just maintain the existing wording? You said? Kevin?
Yeah, maintain the existing wording, but to, let's see, page 3 in that packet. But to add some characteristics in there, may have a 660-foot setback from nearest residence. And then 50 foot from property line, and then to add a zoning permit requirement so that we will know when these things come up instead of just, then we know that it came up in 2017 instead of, well, it was there sometime around then. So,
Okay, 'cause that was one of my concerns, that we do protect the existing producers.
but then we maintain it as the 1998 wording.
I'm sorry, where is that, on page 3?
So page 3 is the contract of animal feeding operation class B. The 1998 that I mentioned comes in play in the definition section of the ordinance. It defines what an existing vehicle is. I can get up to Mike, maybe that'll help.
That'd be all right, thank you.
So, Is it under like item 4?
So it'd be under, let's see, I'm in the ordinance, I'm not in my packet. And the,
J, item
so
J?
under item I is the concentrated, oh wait, excuse me, you're right, J. Sorry. So there were less changes under J, being that the clarifies number 3, clarifies number 5 and number 6, and then adds the number 7 there as a replacement before it had a different wording.
So Class D is up to 1,000?
So Class D is up to 250 animal units.
Oh, and then just existing facilities then under J can go
Yep.
up to 1,000?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So what's our feelings relative to scheduling the hearing? I'd say it's done a lot of the work.
Yeah, you guys have done a nice job.
Well, Kevin and David have done most of the research and put it together, and you've helped as well, and we've gotten direction from a couple of our planning commissioners. I mean, I think when we schedule the hearing, we'll have another full presentation that we'll make for the audience that's here, and that'll also refresh your memory on where we're going with this. And like all hearings, you can continue it as long as you want. I mean, you can continue it another month if you need to, but if we do wanna make changes, we have to have an official hearing published, and that's the start of the process.
So how many meetings do we have to go through? 2?
We just go through one.
Just the one?
And then it would go to the county commission, and they have a hearing based on your recommendation.
And to be honest, I think the county commission is just trusting us to do all this stuff, and they have, they don't have much crap on their boots.
Well, and it's a major revision.
They don't want me.
It is a major revision, and so we're looking at,
We need to educate them is what I'm saying, I guess, and one way or the other.
Scott, my basic concern, is there any way existing operations, if they can be like certified, so down the road, if they wanna do something, opposition could say, well, they don't have that number there. I think it would be great if we could have it certified for existing operators, so that it's already down, so when the date is put in print, it's there, it's on record, so, and later down, if they wanna expand, people can't say, well, they weren't at that level.
I guess from what my research is that it's going to be difficult for us to do that for the 1998 date. If we want to pick a new date and do something like what was done in '85 for drainage, where they have a vested drainage, that was a suggestion of another county in the area, that they have vested CAFOs, or you register, you have this many animals on your property at this date, and you're vested at that amount.
but I think what Doug is saying is that you would be vested or you'd be certified, and then you could automatically expand, and
Right.
and I just don't know if that gives, I think that sort of takes the due process away from other people to express their, right now, we don't have a mechanism in our ordinance that would allow for that kind of authority to be granted to.
Okay, so that is, to me though, that is the weak spot. If this says you had to be existing in operation since 1998, correct? That's what you said, Kevin. To me, that's, geez Louise, those guys are old already.
Yeah.
Join the crowd, you know? But, I think you've got to look at, that's too far. I mean, or they should have been in operation within the last, say, even if you say 10 years, you know, rather than putting a date there. For the 10 years, I agree with what you originally said, Scott, about, well, someone just get a couple cows, well, we can double, and say, well, we're existing. Well, you know, but how you can clarify that to where is difficult.
Well, we can work on that some more, on the certification, or, I wanna try and, follow the KISS method where we keep it simple.
Oh, yes.
Because if you have to go through some kind of vesting procedure where you're recording something at the Register of Deeds, it's gonna be a disaster. So, I mean, if we can do it simply through putting in some kind of date in the ordinance that says if you were in existence at this time, then you have some kind of vested right.
Okay, so here's another way of looking at that. Okay, let's just say, I'm 98, I qualified for that. I sell my operation to another operator. It's a continuous operation. It never changes. And then the second buyer wants to do something. Well, does that mean he can't?
He can.
Because it's always been a livestock operation. See, that would be the type of clarification.
It's the use of the property, and that would transfer to heirs, assignees, whatever. So if you sold it, if it was your son that took over the farm, it would count. If you sold it, it would, as long as you didn't cease the use, it would still be effective.
That's a little better.
So we are actually blessed with having legal counsel here tonight. Do you guys know
Oh.
Judy here?
Hi, Judy.
Uh,
You're just in time.
Sarah Show.
Sarah is headed on to bigger and better. So, do you have an opinion on the issue just discussed about protecting the legacies of existing operation?
Not right off the tip of my tongue, I don't, sorry.
Okay, thanks. And you should introduce yourself to all of us
Better
here.
have the microphones, Kevin.
Just what you wanted.
25
Been
minutes.
waiting all night.
That's what I get for hanging
Just
on.
like going before.
Try to keep it to a half an hour or
Sure,
more.
yeah. Well, you give a lawyer the mic and you're in trouble. So, my name's Judy Ziegler Werkamp. I came on with the, State's Attorney's Office July 1st. I came on as half civil, half criminal, and then when Sarah Show left in November, then, I took over more civil, and then we've recently just added Maggie Gillespie, a former legislator, as a civil attorney also. So, thank you.
Judy handles all of our items for us.
Okay. Do we have a lot of items?
We report a lot.
Good.
She's handling the Brandon Water Tower appeal. That trial's been set.
That's going to court.
for,
Oh, by the people who
August
didn't want it?
something, But,
Okay.
Interesting.
so
Okay.
she'll be working with us on that, or should be defending the county's conditional use permit for the Brandon Water Tower.
That should be a good time.
That would be interesting.
Yes, it should be a good time.
Scott, when I went through this today, I had a few different sporadic notes. Is it all right if we just kind of
Sure.
zoom through page by
Yes, go
page?
ahead.
You guys mind?
Nope, that's right. This is
I'll have to go
important.
page
This
by
is one of
page.
our
to
more
let's go.
important ordinances.
Expecting it to be done this early, so.
Me either. Hence the reason I'm willing to ask the question. So,
Where are you starting?
first page, memorandum.
Okay, there we go.
So for CAFO ordinance change review, I just wanna make sure I understand. Right now, we don't say that you can't be over an aquifer, and that wouldn't change? Or does it currently say you can't be over shallow aquifer?
Right now, it precludes CAFOs from being over what's the water source protection area. But if it's a shallow aquifer that's not part of that, then it doesn't. Then it says you have to have this boring,
Okay.
So
which
that would
is
be
very
like a
little.
Lake aquifer, for example?
No, Wall Lake aquifer is a deep aquifer.
Okay,
It has cruddy water, yes.
it is.
Yes.
And the shallow aquifer is defined in the ordinance, and there is a map that accompanies that. And if you look in how the ordinance is worded with that, the map is it was then specifically called out as that's the map we're using.
That makes sense. I bring it up simply because when we get into the public meetings, I think we'll wanna be ready to defend that, because that can be a really hot point. If you make it sound as if, I don't care, put it wherever, whew. I've been attacked on that one a couple times, and that's not at all what anybody's saying, but man, if it sounds at all like that.
Sure.
That gets ugly. Next page, that was easy. The question on the liquid manure application allowance there, are you guys planning to take that out, allowing it? Or were you actually asking the question you want us to?
I was planning on just
Changes to?
Right at the very top, the allowance for the surface application, a liquid manure application, state does not allow it, why should we?
That was a kind of rhetorical question at the bottom of that. I guess we could keep it in there because the way the ordinance read before is that you have to have a very specific reason. You have to contact the planning director and explain your reason and have to show where you're putting it and all these sorts of things. And it's just like, well, even if we did allow it, the state wouldn't allow it. So it just doesn't
Would we
make a-
enforce that, or do we enforce that now, if the state doesn't allow it?
I would guess
If,
we haven't had anybody ask.
Haven't had anyone call in to say that my neighbor is spraying,
Well, they inject it normally.
right.
So they get it.
That hog operation that burned down north of Crooks, though, used to use a irrigation pivot.
Yeah.
And it could come up to put some liquid out on top of an alfalfa field right after the cutting was taken off. That could be.
Oh.
I mean, we could leave it in there. But there's a mechanism in our ordinance now for that,
To allow it or to,
to allow it in rare cases.
That's what they're referring to is it would, as of how it's proposed, that has been removed. So
So this is kind of where my question came in, so, excuse me, if the state doesn't allow it, so let's say somebody goes and applies surface, like you mentioned, on alfalfa, a neighbor smells it, calls the state, says, hey, they can't be doing that, state comes out and says, hey, you can't be doing that. If we said, no, that's fine, are we opening ourselves up to the state?
I don't think so. I think the state laws would supersede or trump our laws or our ordinances.
Meaning, if they don't allow it under any circumstance, we probably just shouldn't either then, right? To avoid that,
Yeah.
or do we maybe allow that leeway here for producer's sake and hope it doesn't bite us? I guess. Because usually it would be the state, well, you guys would get the call and then usually the state would next.
mhm.
So I wanted to bring that up for discussion.
Would that be, but like I say, if the state supersedes, but we don't. just
Then that
about
means
everything,
it's
like
really
say,
not allowed anyway if
yeah,
the
it
state
really
finds
isn't.
out.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
really
that's
isn't.
correct.
So would we want to even run that risk?
I would just take it out.
I agree. Okay, so take
I
it
hate
out.
to constrain us any more than we have to, but if that's one where, if we end up allowing it, when the state doesn't, I think we open ourselves up to, see, Minnehaha County could care less about the environment, the waters and everything else.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's a good point, Paul. Okay,
Next.
Okay, I would make one more statement on that liquid manure. Who is really going to judge, know that was not liquid, this is liquid?
semi-solid.
Fine line. Cause you can pump a
Right.
pit till you can't get any more out of it, but it's still in a little bit of a slurry.
Sludge.
And the neighbors, that's liquid. So we gotta
Right.
be very careful on how we word it.
Well, even, yeah, I mean, if you get down to the chemistry, even the solids are liquid. I mean, wood is liquid, and literally, glass is liquid,
Glass is liquid.
which you think is a solid, but, you know, it's really a liquid.
Is it, for us to try to stay out of that debate, is it possible to put something in here that says it's not allowed unless approved by the state, prior approval by the state type of thing?
You could do that.
We're telling you can't do it, but if the state says go ahead and do it, since they supersede us under whatever your unique circumstance
Or
is,
laws may change.
can we do that?
So in the if you go to the definitions, there is a definition for liquid manure, and it says that it has to be if it can't be handled by a pump. This would be the second to last page. It's 90% manure is stored in liquid form,
Liquid, there it is.
Yep.
Okay,
with or
so-
without agitation. It can be handled by the pump.
Yeah, 90%.
Yep. So it really comes down to, like you said,
Yeah, well,
when you can't pump it, you got it all out of the hole, and the pump is not working anymore. Then
If you heat it up, does it get more liquid?
Sell it.
People love that. Boil it for a little bit first.
Get the odor off it.
I personally think anytime there's the potential conflict between the two, if we can figure out a way to allow for flexibility but defer to the state to make the determination,
Yes.
is our safest bet.
Yep.
Because
So
that way
we-
we're not asking staff to get into the debate of, well, when's it sludge, when's it liquid, when it's not. And now we're opening ourselves up to staff being forced to make a determination that they're not qualified to make. And then what do we do to
Then
defend
it's
it?
challengeable.
Then Judy comes in.
Yes. Okay,
So maybe we,
are already taken care of that.
should we not mention liquid manure then in the regular?
I think we basically say, my opinion, we say it has to be incorporated, has to be
Yeah, okay,
injected.
fine.
Uh,
All right.
But you could make a statement of, unless
allowed by the state?
unless prior approval is received by the state, DNR or something.
Like an emergency application due to.
Something, I mean, those things
Oil
happen.
Pit in the middle, we had an excessive wet fall and their lagoons are.
I know there's been cases DNR has come in and allowed a little bit of leeway, but it's very structured. I mean, if it's frozen ground, semi-frozen, maybe saturated, whatever, they say, all right, yeah, it's gotta be, only these pieces qualify, but you can do it because otherwise you're facing a lot bigger problem. And then they do it. But then it's on record, it was decided by engineers and the appropriate folks.
Okay, let's
Okay.
roll on.
The bottom of that same page on the expiration of conditional uses, if I read that right, do we not have a mechanism right now where we can extend a conditional use for like, say, a year?
We can extend only a year if there's no opposition.
If there's no opposition, and often most cases you're gonna get some opposition at a planning commission meeting.
Well, let me say this, that I know there was one application we approved that didn't get built because, you know, during the long application period to get this pushed through, and it was appealed, that then their financing fell through, and so then it never happened. It was that calf operation where they were gonna take them.
Right.
Yeah. And so it didn't get built, and they still have them living in hutches or whatever we call it. And, you know, with our drainage stuff, which we repealed, we went from a 1-year permit to a 2-year permit.
3.
I mean, would that be an awful thing? That would allow for vagaries of weather and construction and,
2 years would, for sure.
Well, I was gonna give two examples that came to my mind as to where I personally think that we should allow ourselves a latitude to at least consider extending one. And, I mean, opposition is almost guaranteed anymore, so, I mean, let's just assume we can't extend it then. So, let's say it's 1 year and we allow up to a 1-year extension. Working with a dairy in Moody County, just had to go in and get his extended. He was held up because he couldn't get the haul road agreement done, not because the
Yeah.
township didn't wanna cooperate.
Right.
But because it was just a whole slew of just
It's
odd things that all
complicated.
hit at the right time. So that held him up, and then also, right now, as you're well aware, there's nobody that's dying to buy the milk. So he's having to put it off, so this spring he had to go in and get an extension. The biggest thing was the township. He wanted to start last fall, but without his haul road agreement, he couldn't. So the whole winter got wasted. Now spring, March was his permit, so we went and got an extension. To me, there's a really good excuse to be willing to consider. It was nothing he did.
Depends on what time of year it's
It
approved.
was circumstances, and that was approved in March.
I think we should just word it that, it will expire 1 year unless they come,
Request an extension or
bring
something.
us something to you for, another 1-year extension. So
I think most counties limit it to, you can get up to one-year extension.
So
And
it's
then,
like two
and then if you
total
haven't
years,
started
2
turning
years
dirt,
total.
you're done.
Yeah, and we can word that way.
okay.
Yeah, right now there isn't anything in,
Happened. They have to
even,
get an
right
extension.
now there isn't anything even in the proposal here, so we'll work on that if that's what we want.
I personally would rather see somebody get an extension and farm that land for another year than just go out and scratch dirt so it sets there dormant, not doing
Right.
anything, cause they had to say that they started their construction.
Well, we have that issue in so many ways. I mean, construction is not a 12-month operation in South Dakota.
Right.
And so you have a window, and then you miss the window, and for whatever reason.
Okay, those are good points.
I'd be willing to go for a 2-year permit, I mean,
Yeah.
right off the bat. And,
I think once we approve it, we mean it. I mean, any changes, they'd have to come to you guys and might have to come back anyway, right?
We can just make it a 2-year permit, good for 2 years.
and then allow for an extension without objection at that point.
Up to 1 year? Maybe
Yeah,
in that case?
A 2-year permit with a 1-year extension if, which could be objected to.
After 2 years.
So
Yeah.
keep the original terms basically, but give a 2-year permit up front.
Okay, we can change it that way.
I like a 2-year idea.
Yeah, if everybody's comfortable with that.
'Cause you can easily, well, just like you said, you can easily run into 2 years.
Yeah. 18 months is not a surprise.
All right.
Okay. The next page, which isn't numbered, action at the bottom, I was just gonna ask, how many meetings we staffed, so we already covered that. Nothing on 1. Oh, we're cruising now. 2, 3, already asked those questions. 4, nothing. I know I got more in here. 5, 6. On page 1, under 12.10, bottom of the page, on the notifications, I'm sure we discussed this a couple meetings ago, and I couldn't remember where we ended up or how everybody felt. Should we make a requirement of the landowner, especially or the developer, the producer in this case, in the case of a CAFO, for sure, be reaching out to the landowners? If you think of, say, the water tower deal in Brandon, when the people felt like they hadn't been talked to, I mean, in the end, they still didn't like it, but that first meeting was a whole
Brandon
bunch
never
of
talked to
people.
him. Brandon never spoke to him.
There's a whole bunch of people saying they never talked to me. And if the first time they engage, I've seen this with CAFOs multiple times, if the first time they engage is at the permit hearing, it doesn't go well.
When they unload
And
the
that first meeting's
bulldozer.
gonna be a nightmare.
They unload the bulldozer, and then they peopled us the first time they heard
Yeah.
about it.
I personally think the more we can encourage
Communication.
interaction and communication up front, the
Yeah,
better
you're
our meetings
absolutely
go.
right.
So how would you just?
I think you make them do the notice, personally.
They do have to do a 500-foot notice already, and
Right, by
this is
mail.
in
And then
addition to
You guys
that.
go out a half mile though,
Yep,
right?
yep.
I think have them do the half mile.
That's not,
That's still
Not
never
reasonable
far
request.
enough.
Well, no, you could go 20 miles. Well, anything that's,
but a half mile is not an unreasonable request.
I personally don't think so.
There could be a dozen people there, though.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
dozen letters, a dozen visits. You're
Yeah.
serious about it.
Seems like cost of doing business to me. I mean, they should be reaching out to them anyway, because if you think about doing development, you wanna be working with your neighbors, cause if you
They were
don't,
PR.
life is hell. But
Whatever you
Uh,
can convert in advance of the meeting is better than
we can't do it at the meeting.
yelling at each other at the meeting.
People are there for or against at the meeting, we all know that. And if they haven't interacted at all, I think they get even more angry if it's you guys that reach out to them and the landowner didn't even have, or the developer didn't even have the courtesy to send them a letter that says, hey, give me a call if you have any concerns.
We've had it before where cousins didn't talk to each other, and they're sitting like this in the back of the room on a drainage thing, I remember. They were, one was there, and we deferred action for 2 weeks, and they talked, and it was,
Yeah.
in fact, they were done before our meeting was done. They figured it out.
I've seen a lot of those types of things happen.
Because they just never talked ahead of time.
Yeah.
Right.
So I
It
think-
seems everybody's life
Paul,
is
so
better.
what you're suggesting is that the petitioner should notify property owners within a 1/2 mile.
I think so, whatever that,
That's, I'm fine with that.
whatever
I
that
think it's a good
distance
idea.
is.
Personally and by mail.
I think they should be ready to come in with proof of certified mail, saying they got, I notified them, somehow or another, like what the Brandon guys did. When they came back in, I thought, hey, now they've done everything that they could.
Yeah.
They sat down with them, still didn't like it, but at least they sat down with them, but in some cases, it was too late. Because the heels were already dug in, so there was nothing gonna change.
I think all we can do is require them to do it by mail.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea to do it in person,
I
but
would use the term certified
I think
mail.
certified mail, personally.
That way they
That we
can
have a
say
receipt.
they have receipts.
It's good for them, more than anything, be able to show their
Hopefully they go and
receipts.
see them before they send the letter. That's a matter of coaching.
We regularly get people
Coaching.
complain they never got notice, of their tax requirement or whatever.
we can add that by certified mail.
Do we want it, then the return receipt then too, and?
Well, that comes
Well, I would
with
think
it.
they'd want
Okay.
some kind
Yeah.
of proof that they mailed it. To me, it's easier sitting on this side of the table if a producer comes in and shows they at least gave some effort to reach out to their neighbors and said, you know, here's my number, at the very least, here's my address, write me back.
Do due diligence.
Yeah.
certified receipt requested, or return receipt requested.
It just, I guess to play devil's advocate, return receipt, that's like $7 a mailer, just to let you know that.
I think when you're doing a
Sure.
confined feeding operation that's $1 million,
Sure.
I think it's a
Right.
pretty good investment to
Uh-huh.
be able to defend
Okay.
that
Yeah.
you tried, personally, if it's me.
Because you're serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it goes a long ways, even though it seems like it shouldn't be that big a deal.
Sure.
I've seen a lot of those that makes the difference.
Okay, good. Next point? Page 2.
Next page, I just asked the question again about the located over map shallow aquifer area. It's depicted on DNR thing, but you guys already addressed that, I think, kind of the explanation. It's just, I was just making the note that that could be a sticking point. Let's see. The waiver, the may be reduced by 50%. So number 2, under the land use setbacks, in the absence of a waiver, required setback may be reduced by 50%. Do we want to say up to in there? It kind of reads to me that we're saying if we reduce it, it's 50%. We can't go a few hundred
Sure.
feet or.
Okay.
Is everybody comfortable with that, or think that makes sense?
That makes sense. 'Cause like you say, that doesn't mean we can go 50%, we could go 5%.
Or
Yeah.
40.
Or 40.
Does that allow for the innovative technologies that we may deploy? Is that?
Not really anymore, in part because that becomes a sticky issue on what is innovative technology, where trees are a universal odor reducer. It is kind of that respect.
But what if somebody comes in and say, okay, I'm gonna do a dairy farm, I'm gonna have all covered lagoons, and that type of
Biofilters.
Under a
log
domed,
facilities.
a domed facility that would be completely self-contained environment.
And then the problem is that new technology, because that's been a while,
It has been a while, but it's different.
so.
The only thing I wondered there that I just made a note on that, other than the up to, is do we want to put that 50% limitation on ourselves when we have no idea case by case? Because we reduced
I
that
think
one
up
of
to,
Alders or Alderson's,
by his
that was even more than 50%.
That was a
wasn't
little
it?
more than 50%, yep.
So, I was thinking of that one in the standpoint of, do we want to put the 50%? Because we don't know if that next young producer might come in and we feel it's a really unique situation that seems justifiable because of all the factors included. That's the only one that makes me wonder if we want to put the 50% on there. Just because we don't know what might come up.
It's a guideline.
Yeah, it's good to have something, and I don't know if it becomes more bargaining chip than anything, if that becomes contentious, but.
I guess back to the kind of the covers and stuff. Scott always says keep it simple. That's really the other reason why it went just trees, because for a dairy farm to have covered lagoons, well, the next place is going to have something completely different, and to list out all those different things that might be allowable to reduce that setback, it's.
So, you just pointed that out. This really is just referencing if it's trees.
Yep.
So we can go up to 50% if trees are planted. You're not actually bringing in any of the other
Nothing else.
pieces to that, oh, I didn't even catch
Okay.
that. Makes sense. Thank you. The liquid manure application, next page. Yeah, page 4, sorry, under item 2C, 1, 2, 3, 4. The only thing I had questioned was if you guys were comfortable getting into the worrying about the nitrogen and all of those things, or if it would be simpler for you if it was something that said it had to be approved by a DNR again, or
It would be easier.
something licensed.
Yep.
That they maybe would have to submit to you that this has been approved as a reasonable rate. But, I mean, later on, I think you got into that more because you defined that a little bit more about what levels there are, but.
Yeah, you're right. It wouldn't be something that we would readily be able to go and test. So, that's just what.
Staff needs to do it, but they're not even trained in it. Are we opening them and us and everybody up to that fight? A DNR
Or a certified crop consultant.
certified consultant that comes in and does the testing for most people?
Management consultant.
And then it's at least somebody that's got credentials
Management
versus us saying, hey, you guys deal with it.
Yeah, it'd be somebody like Central or somebody like that that does those things.
I think there's quite a few that do it.
We can make that change too.
Well, and that's if everybody else is comfortable with it. I'm just spitting all kinds of stuff out.
You're doing a great
job.
Oh, all right, all right.
Can I kind of jump in?
Yes.
Should there be anything put in for like injecting mild pumping stations? You know what I?
Yep. Because once you get a mile away, you need a pump again.
Right.
Yeah, booster pumps.
So I'm just, you know, that, I think there should be something about pumping stations are allowed.
Oh, is that sometimes a problem?
Can be.
Oh, really? People will throw a fit that there's a
Oh, yeah.
pumping station to
Right.
keep it going? Really?
Yeah, usually
That's
you
a
have-
temporary situation though, isn't it?
It is.
It's temporary, but.
What is the application process?
The pumping stations should be then part of the manure management plan that says, you know, we're having liquid manure and we may be pumping it more than 2 miles or whatever it might be.
If it's gonna be done right, you gotta have it.
Yeah, it's gotta go, yeah. So how would you state that?
I never heard that before. People just see them and that's more of a nuisance.
Part of your manure management
Yeah.
plan.
So I don't think you have to state it.
I think it's covered under manure
Just
management.
the
plan.
manure
It's
management.
it's an approved plan.
Yeah.
Part of that, part of that.
Leave it
plan.
out, nothing.
Okay. Number 3, other than liquid manure application, I was just curious where the, no thicker than 3 inches on tillable soil and 1 inch on frozen soil, where that comes from.
That comes from our nuisance ordinance.
So it brings up to me the same question of, should we just, for your guys' sake, let that be a DNR type thing? I
You
don't
went
know.
out there with a ruler?
That's easier to do than
Have?
testing nitrogen.
Nice.
Scott's actually had to go out and do that with the ruler. I think we should leave it.
Well, I eyeballed it.
You can keep, you can keep that ruler when you retire.
You know, for lawn grass, we have a stick that has a 12-inch mark, and you just pound a nail in, and when the grass is taller than that 12 inches, then you're good. It doesn't have a ruler, so we could do the same thing with manure. You know.
It was more just question again of,
Sure.
is
Well,
that something
It
that,
gives you a guideline.
Mhm.
yeah, I just didn't know if there was any meat
Because
behind it.
actually to get it uniformly spread at 3 inches, that's a lot of stuff.
That is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but it's, you open it up and you get a pile.
Oh, yeah, you'll have one here.
Right.
And that's what they're gonna,
Endgame comes up.
that's what they're gonna cut. See, it's
And
over 3
there's my
inches.
concern is you
Yes.
get that one neighbor that reads it. I mean, it hasn't happened, I hope, has it?
Oh, it does.
Look at
But
me.
it
Oh.
just, then you just,
It's the average of the field.
well, then you just say that's.
The average of the field.
ridiculous. That's just where they started, and if you look at the entire field, it's.
Is that when you just say, don't you have some chickens to be mad about?
Find a high spot, check it.
Okay, if you guys aren't
That's
concerned,
it's not an issue.
I certainly not. On the animal species and equivalents, something that recently was brought up to me, which I think makes perfect sense. You know, we never had Jersey cows here really before, but now
Right.
that's, a lot of these big dairies are going all Jersey.
Really?
And, yeah,
Where are you at?
on page
Page
5,
five.
sorry, in the
Mature dairy
table.
cattle,
Mature dairy
1.4.
cattle.
Some
Definition.
people go 1.1 on jerseys, isn't it?
I heard 1.0 treated the same as beef, but yeah, 1 or 1.1.
Why aren't they all just dairy cattle?
No,
because
jerseys are a
Jersey-
lot
mature
bigger.
Jersey weighs about 1,000 pounds.
They
Mature
eat more, they
Holstein's
poop more.
1450.
So-
How much?
1450
So in some states
average.
where where jerseys have been around a long time, you know, it was always Holsteins here, so there was nothing to, but
That sort of scares me because, you know, what about water buffaloes and you're gonna make mozzarella cheese? I
yeah,
mean,
we'd
I
have to
don't
find
know
something for them.
what size is a water buffalo. I've never
Right.
seen one. I
Is
mean,
that
where
where
are we gonna-
mozzarella cheese comes from?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there have been some, you know, you get into Jersey cattle. The other thing you'll get into is on calves.
Yeah.
If you look at Minnesota's animal list, it's 3 times as long as this because it breaks down all those things. And this is the list that South Dakota has, and
This
it doesn't.
is ours kinda list?
Yeah, it doesn't change our ordinance a whole lot. It just goes right to South Dakota's.
Yep, well, and I was gonna say too, that was more of a note, and, if we're not gonna have graduated setbacks, a large is a large anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, then it doesn't really make all that big difference, but there are some going to that, apparently.
Geese that land up by you.
I think that was,
That's not.
see how easy that
cool
was,
there.
Scott? That was all I had.
So 6 hens are 0.2 animal units, basically.
So do you want to,
Let's adjust that.
do you want to schedule a hearing for May or June, or what would you like to do?
Oh, God.
How's everybody feeling?
I would say the time of year, the latter part of June would be
Yeah,
better.
June.
Okay, we'll do it for June then. I thought about that, cause May,
Things are still
there's a
going.
good timing, you know, then crops are all
Yeah,
in.
you don't know what the field conditions will be like, weather.
Actually, we put enough hay.
That didn't hit you, did it?
Okay,
Rubber
we'll
bandages.
schedule it for June.
Well, I wonder if we should work to educate my fellow commissioners before the hearings.
Well, that'll give us time to, if we do it in June, then we can do we could do like a briefing memo that we're taking this to the planning commission, which is, let them know it's coming up, and then we could reach out to them and let them know, and then if they have questions, they can come to us.
I think I would like us to consider doing some one-on-one discussions with our regular commissioners.
Yeah.
Okay,
However that works, I'd sure be happy to.
Great.
we'll schedule it for June, that'll give us time.
Yeah, it will, it will.
All right,
So we'll see a final proposal then next,
we can, yeah, we'll put together a final proposal, and then we'll go on for June. So next meeting, you'll see the final workup, and then we'll go on.
are we gonna
Nice
keep
to
you
meet you,
busy?
Judy.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
We'll try to leave the chickens out of it next time.
Yes, we will.
Peacock.
The chickens will be appealed, so we'll
yeah.
keep,
Really?
we'll keep you
I
informed.
think it will be.
I'm guessing they will be.
Yeah,
That'll be a good one for you to hear again, Jeff.
Yes.
That'll go to the city.
How'd you vote?
I voted to deny it.
How many
Motion.
mice and might be out there running in their grass?
I just felt like it was okay to approve it, but I didn't think unanimity was best.
Yeah, that's how I approached the water tower a
Yeah.
couple months ago. Knew that was moving on
I
to
think
the
that
commission.
it shows we seriously listen to the opponents.
Yeah, because like I said, it's unbelievable, the time we spent on that.
Well, it seemed to me like the bulk of the concerns were addressed, and the rest is sour grapes, clearly.
We don't like that guy.
So he has a chance if they get out. I mean, he knows he's gonna have 10 people calling your guys' shop, so either he does it right, or he knows they gotta go.
Let's officially adjourn.
So moved.
Back at,
Second.
Okay.
okay, you're adjourned.
Finally, everybody was in agreement.